Well, the offense struggled as usual, but the Panthers still came out with a win against UT Martin, 31-6, the final score. First time in Georgia State football history, the defense didn't give up a touchdown, which is the story of the game. It's the performance of the defense. My name is Joey Redmond. This guy's Rashad Milligan, and we're going to break things down from the outside looking back in now that we're after the game. And here we go, Rashad. Let's talk about how the defense do so well.
Let's talk about defense and how the defense did so well. I think you have to give credit to Coach Minner and his father, Papa Minner. That's my nickname for Coach Minner's father, Papa Minner, coming from the NFL, bringing that experience down to Georgia State. We've talked about how improved this defense has been all season, it seemed like, on every single primetime talk we've done. And, the case continued today, especially today, in a day when you didn't have Connor Manning, Robert Davis, Keith Rucker Jr., and Penny Hart. You didn't have any of those guys, so the defense had to step up for our already shaken offense. Kyle Linnell as well, excuse me. And the defense stepped up. He had 64 total tackles on the day.
Yeah, that's impressive.
64 total tackles, a few interceptions, and at least 2 or 3 defensive scores I can remember just off top.
Yeah, there was a lot going on defensively in this game, and you bring up a good point about, the offense was hurting.
Right.
The team didn't find out about who their starting quarterback was going to be until Thursday, basically.
Right.
It just sort of out of nowhere, Connor Manning just became too hurt to play. He was wearing something on his arm on the sidelines the whole rest of the game or the whole time in the game. So it became Aaron Winchester's team with very little time to do anything about it. And I guess maybe if you're going to have anybody who needs to fill in immediately with very little prep time, you almost are happy you have somebody. You can argue about how actually good Aaron Winchester is as a quarterback or not, but the point I'm trying to make is you have somebody who's got multiple ways to move the offense around. Aaron's got his arm and his legs.
Right.
So
right.
If you need somebody to just throw yourself in there and just fill in something for a team in short notice, maybe the offense isn't going to be clicking, but when push comes to shove, maybe Aaron can make some plays with his legs. And he did a lot of that. He led the team in rushing, on the game. So that shone through. He even had really the first time the Panthers were in the end zone was a rushing play by Aaron Winchester, but was called back from a holding penalty. So he did contribute there in that front. And with Penny Hart already out from the previous game, Robert Davis wasn't on the injured list. He had at least 1 catch or 2 catches. One of them I know while I was filming on the sideline, he almost hit me. So he was definitely active in the game, but he didn't contribute much. He's not even listed in the final stat sheet as somebody who contributed well enough to be on the list. So he at least got to participate in the homecoming game, but for all intents and purposes, he was out too. Kyler Neal was out. Keith Rucker was out. So the offense was, it was a patchwork.
Right.
It was a patchwork. So for the defense to do what they did, it meant a lot. It meant even more because it was a historical defensive game. We already said first time in Georgia State history that the team hasn't given up a touchdown pass or a touchdown period.
Yeah.
There's just 2 field goals on the side of UT Martin. That's a huge deal. The first time there were 2 defensive scores in a single game. It was only the second time in school history that there was a fumble return for a touchdown, which that was an exciting play to watch. So the defense gets the win here. The offense just contributed because you have to have an offense to play a football game.
Right.
Really, is kind of how it breaks down.
The offense kind of just stalled the show into the defense guy, which I'm going to get into a little later down the show, but we'll go ahead with the next topic.
Yeah, let's talk about somebody in particular. Since we're talking about the defense, we're going to talk a lot about defensive players here. I want to talk about somebody who was in a little bit of hot water to start the season with a mysterious suspension, and it seemed like maybe his reputation in the team and his reputation in Georgia State athletics was maybe a little bit in jeopardy here. But linebacker Trey Payne found himself not only back from suspension, but doing more than ever.
Okay, so let's go down the list, Joey, about
Go ahead,
Trey Payne.
because I'm going to run out of things. So you start.
Trey Payne, long snapper.
He was a long snapper.
He was a kick returner.
And he scored, he talked, what's the number? 11 yards. He kick returned 11 yards.
The longest kick return, because the only kick return of the day.
Right, 1 kick return for 11 yards, Trey Payne.
And he was also the linebacker.
Who had the second most amount of tackles on the team with 6. Long snapper, second leading tackler on the team for the game. and kickoff returner. This guy, I mean, you want to talk about athleticism.
Right.
I mean, I know some people would argue, oh, there's, what athleticism really is there in lawn snapping? And oh, what athleticism really is there in, in kick returning? And, to some degree, comparatively to other, what you consider skill positions, there's an argument to be made there. But linebackers typically don't do anything, just that position in particular, don't do anything outside of maybe linebacker. You might see him at defensive end. Right. But to go to special teams and return kicks, it's unheard of. Right. If it was a running back, even that would be weird in the long snapper spot, a receiver having to step up and sub in for, kick return special teams, completely normal, not a big deal. But he had 3 roles tonight, and he played all 3 about as well as you could, given every opportunity he had. Because like we said, there was only 1 kick return, brought it back for 11 yards. He contributed on that phase of the game. I didn't notice any errors in snapping ever when we had to kick, point afters, because we scored a couple of field goals in this game and everything went well. We point afters of the touchdowns, nothing went wrong in the exchange from the snap to the hold to the kick.
No Romo fumbles.
No Romo fumbles. So that was all on the shoulders of Trey Payne.
Right.
And his ability to pull that off, mind-boggling. One of the most exciting things I've seen in any football event ever.
I don't know if I'll go that far. But
just the unusual nature
right,
of what he
had to do was exciting. That was exciting.
Yes.
I would put Robert Kimdichie in high school. I remember Robert Kimdichie was the biggest kid on the field as a freshman, and he would go from D tackle and then get sacks, like 3 sacks in a row, and then the other team would kick it back to Grayson, and then he'll return to Grayson as the fullback.
Right.
And then would just run him over until he scored. So that was probably the craziest thing I've seen personally in football. Eric Berry also, when he was at Creekside, obviously that's high school, another level.
Right, high school is a
lot
Lots
of
people play multiple sides of the ball.
Exactly.
Right, because a lot of times you're dealing with roster size,
and
people don't have dedicated positions then. Most people don't really get into football until high school anyhow. So, people come in as a quarterback and they end up being a cornerback afterwards, just because they figure themselves out. So, you bring up good points. But on the collegiate level, in games I watch from day to day, what Trey Payne did was something for the books. And I think, as far as Georgia State athletic lore goes, I feel like the university is going to remember this day, especially on homecoming, of all games to be, perform at such unusual levels across the board. We're going to be hearing about this for years to come.
Right, we definitely salute. We salute Trey Payne. After getting off to that slow start of being suspended at the beginning of the year with Taz Bateman.
Right, for reasons that we still don't really know.
For reasons that we don't know, and we might not never ever know.
And maybe that's okay.
But maybe that's all right. But as Coach Miles said after the game, he's been coaching for over 30 years and he's never seen a performance like that from as you said, as you just said that I didn't agree with. Right.
That's okay.
As the internet would say, during the memes, I always got to throw in something every show, Joey.
Every show.
He needs some milk.
He needs some milk.
After tonight, Trey Payne needs some milk.
That's maybe good medical advice. You got to go get your bones strong for the next game. Get the calcium.
Yeah. For South Alabama.
Right, for South Alabama.
We're on to Cincinnati.
We're on to Cincinnati. Yeah, that's what Trent Miles was talking about in the post game. We're on to South Alabama. But, I want to talk about the offense. Of course, we can praise the defense all game long. But, the offense, it struggled. And I know we talked about, obviously, they had a lot of people out and they had a lot of players, not performing well. Aaron Winchester late, to the party as far as the starting lineup is concerned. But it doesn't help the reputation of the offense.
Right.
You can make these excuses, and they'd be better as excuses if it was unusual for them to perform at this level. The final score, was 31-6. By the time the fourth quarter hit, which was basically garbage time, the defense had more points than the offense.
Right.
The offense has scored 10 points collectively. The defense has scored 14 points collectively. So at that point, we had Glenn Smith absolutely went off and, destroyed through somebody not Glenn Smith, Darius Stubbs, running backs. He tore through a couple of defenders. Literally put them on their backs.
Which is a good mark.
It was a good mark.
It's a great mark because you talk about the offense struggling. The rushing game especially has if you're talking about the total offense, quarterback play has been mediocre for the most part. I think it's fair to say.
Right.
All due respect to Connor Manning and Aaron Winchester, the play overall this season has been mediocre. And then you talk about the rushing game. The rushing game has been, if not one of the worst in the country. So to get a rush like that from Darius Stubbs, and
It was a big deal.
And Trey Barnett had his moments this season and tonight.
Right.
And then Kyler Neal, who was out tonight, had his moments during the season
last
too.
week. He
Last
had a
week.
Great game last week, right?
And a couple weeks ago when we won against Texas State at home. So you need those.
You do
And,
need.
You know, we're getting a little from the rushing game. The overall offense as a whole it doesn't look good. But
Right. Sort of the point I was trying to get at was you had those flashes.
Right.
You had those moments, but they don't really come when it's most needed, right? The Darian Stubbs touchdown, it was cool to watch, you know, but at that point, I mean, it wasn't like anything was on the line,
Right.
you know, and when the pressure is really on, the offense doesn't seem to always perform at the level it needs to. I mean, it's frustrating because you're not going to win every game, and we don't win every game, obviously, you know, counting on your defense to score your points.
Right.
You know, I mean, you can hopefully, or thankfully, you have a defense that can limit the opposing team's offense. Because this offense wasn't bad. The offense of UT Martin wasn't bad coming into the game. They're not at the NCAA level.
UT Martin is a team that scored 81 points this
Right.
season.
Yeah.
And they won 81-6 against I think it was like Capcom College, community college. But they still scored 81 points in the game against a college team.
So as a unit, they understand how to click. So we have a defense that can hold people like that at bay, if you will.
Right.
6 points, obviously.
One more thing I want to say about the defense before you continue.
Sure.
Before this game, the lowest scoring game that UT Martin had was, other than the Cincinnati game where they only had 7 points, was 21 points. So
They had
this
6 tonight.
exactly.
Yeah.
This is a team that scored. Like, I just want people to know, and they haven't played. You know, even though they're not in the FBS, they're in the FCS. They still play teams like Hawaii, Cincinnati.
And they beat Hawaii in Hawaii.
Right.
Even, right. So, my point, they're a great offense.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
we
exactly.
got, so we
Long
got
story short.
Right, long story short. So we got to see the defense step up. So on our offensive side, we're lucky that we have a defense that can do that. But when it comes down to it, you can't count on your defense to score your points. And again, we can give the offense the excuses this game, but this wasn't an unusual offensive performance. The offense typically performs like this. Maybe you can say the running game stepped up, and even in the post-game press conferences, Trent Miles did praise the offensive line for how they are improving on the season, and I think that does actually hold some weight. I mean, we saw Kyler Neal go off in ways we hadn't seen him go off before last week, and now this week, you know, we've got an actual rushing touchdown, and collectively we've got 166 rushing yards on 33 attempts, or 39 attempts, excuse me. So 166 rushing yards, that's a good game.
Right.
That's a solid running game. So anything at 100 is good. Anything over that, let alone 66 yards over that, that's a great rushing game. So that does help sort of give you that confidence. But ultimately, we need to see the offense do something better as a unit going forward. I mean, we still don't necessarily have the simplest schedule as we close out. And most of the games, if not all the games that we have left, I think, are at home to finish things out. So not only is it about getting themselves in check, but it's about the reputation of the team. I mean, this is a team that last season, the greatest quarterback in arguably Sun Belt history, certainly in Georgia State program history, Nick Arbuckle, and who's the receiver? I'm forgetting Donovan Harden. Thank you. I forgot Donovan Harden's name. And Donovan Harden together, they really lit the field up.
Right.
And they had a lot of great games. They won a lot of games, and they ended up in the first bowl game.
He also had Penny Hart.
He also had Penny
the
Hart.
number one option.
Right, but now he's out for the season, so it's hard to. Right.
I mean, I just wanted to give him his.
He does deserve his
Shout
credit
out,
for his
shout out.
contribution last season. But I say all that because there maybe was a reputation that was being put together about maybe where Georgia State football can go.
Right.
And to go from a 500 season in your first ever bowl game appearance, granted we lost the bowl game, but it's a step in the right direction.
Right.
To starting the season, 0-4, going 1-5 now. Now we're 2-5.
Granted, last season they started 2-4.
They did, but now we're 2-5, and it's all about the momentum, right?
Right,
It's all
right,
about the
right.
momentum. We don't really have the momentum on our side, and you worry about the offense performing at such a low level in so many consecutive home games,
Right.
in front of a lot more people that have a lot more heart and passion into the team. you want them to stick around. You don't want 20,000 people to come to the next home game and 15,000 to come to the last home game,
Right.
because that's usually a fan loyalty problem.
Right.
And the offense has a reputation of trying to protect.
Right. And another problem with the offense that I want to point out is time of possession. Time of possession is something that we've struggled with all season.
Mm-hmm.
And tonight, UT Martin still beat us in the time of possession game. They had 7 more minutes with the ball, and they also had almost 20 more plays. They almost had 20 more plays than us. And that's just, they know how to stay on the field.
Mm-hmm. And that brings back credit to the defense
Right.
about their ability to keep all that in check. And
Right.
Aaron Winchester still, again, he was late to the party as far as, being a part of the starting lineup, but he still managed to throw 2 picks.
Right.
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 And that gives, a lot of time of possession back to UT Martin. Granted, we had 3 interceptions, really. We had 4 total turnovers, 3 interceptions. So that was a little bit, we didn't get a lot of time of possession there because both of those turnovers turned into immediate touchdowns. So really, if you want to talk about the opportunity to get time of possession off turnovers, it's even at 2 and 2.
Right.
Because the turnovers that UT Martin got out of us did not turn into immediate touchdowns, and we had 2 of our 4 turnovers also not turn into immediate touchdowns.
Right.
So it's 2 and 2 there. So you'd think you'd see a more even split in the time of possession, but there's a 7-minute margin,
Right.
which is that's significant in football.
Right.
I mean, that's
Definitely.
2, 3, even 4 good drives in some cases.
Right.
And you hate to see that from an offense, especially one, again, that last season seemed to have a bit of a reputation going in its favor.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. They just have to get right, because you got, like as you mentioned before, you have South Alabama, you have Georgia Southern, the team down south. You have the other team that they're playing on Thursday night in a couple of weeks.
Right.
Which was a tough team. But you have all of these
Arkansas
teams.
State.
Arkansas
State,
State.
yeah.
But the best team in the conference. So you have these teams to finish up the season, and Idaho. And if you're struggling with time of possession and offensive plays and offense, and they're not going to take it easy on you, And as you're saying, to make that run to the bowl game, I don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say it's not going to happen this season.
I don't know if it's going to
happen.
happen.
I think the question I want to ask, maybe to close things out before we hit game balls, is what is it that needs to be fixed? I have my theories, specifically, but I'll let you address it first from your perspective, and I'll go into mine. Offensively, of course, I'm speaking about.
I think everything from football, it starts from the most obvious important position, which is quarterback. I think once the quarterback gets comfortable, I think Connor Manning has the potential to be that quarterback. We've seen flashes of it. Aaron Winchester has the potential. We've seen flashes of it. I think once the quarterback gets comfortable in the system that we have right now, I think they'll be all right. It all stems from the quarterback. The offense, the O-line has played like trash half the season. Receivers have been inconsistent, even though we have a killer receiver core. That was probably our strongest position going into the
Position
season.
group. Yeah, position group going in, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I think it all stems from the quarterback. And I think once the quarterback gets comfortable with Georgia State and our culture and what we're trying to build post-Nick Arbuckle era, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go with that too. It's the quarterback play, and it's so cliche.
Right.
It's almost like overused, and I feel like people hate hearing about it, especially quarterbacks. But that's what you sign up for.
Right.
When you go into the position, when you tell yourself, I want to grow up to be a college quarterback one day or a professional quarterback,
right.
It's what you sign up for. You are supposed to be the guy who makes everybody in the offense better.
Right.
You hear about people who are just individual leaders in their position groups who help make their positions better. But the quarterback, all the way from the offense to the defense to the special teams, you're supposed to be the guy that makes the team better. And when there's inconsistent play from the quarterbacks, there's going to be inconsistent play across the board. Right. I think the defense has put themselves in a position where they know as a unit, they all support each other, they love each other as teammates, and they want to win games together. So the defense, those leaders have stepped up and become the quarterbacks for this team. And that's the best way to put it. And we see that in the way they've learned to work together, the way they've learned to perform, the way they step up when asked. Trey Payne, the best example of that. no matter what the circumstance. Yeah, coach, I'll be a long snapper. Yeah, coach, I'll return kicks. If that's what the team needs, you bet.
Right.
There's consistency there, and they've become sort of the quarterback of this team. But you don't want that. It's nice to have it, but you don't want it. You want an actual quarterback. And when you can't get Connor the appropriate amount of snaps he needs as a starter,
Right.
especially when we saw the first couple games, he and Aaron were still sharing snaps.
Right.
You know, I know Aaron had to come in on an injury thing. Okay, maybe some exceptions there. But we've seen Aaron in the starting role before, so because they didn't really do a lot to tell people about Connor being hurt, because we didn't even find out about it until game time.
Right.
And we're always researching.
Right.
And they kept that really under wraps. So when you see that, it almost makes it look like Connor just got benched again.
Right.
And from a fan perspective, now it's like, oh great, here we go. We still don't have a consistent quarterback. We still don't have anybody who we can count on. And it has to start there. It has to end there. And the coaching staff needs to do something to figure out what quarterback it is they're actually going to spend their time teaching.
Correct. You know, you think about quarterback play, you know, quarterback play, it kind of dominates what the offense performs like. And then if the offense performs poorly because the quarterback is performing poorly, well, then the defense is on the field a lot. Georgia State played 24 guys tonight on defense. And they have a bunch of injuries on defense and offense because the defense is always on the field. It's going to be a problem. You can't have the performance that you had tonight every single week, especially against a team like South Alabama that beat Mississippi State, against a team like Arkansas State, who was the best team in my opinion, or one of the best, if not top 2, top 3 teams in the Sun Belt. All of these guys,
sure.
You know, all these teams, you can't play like, you can't get away with what you got away with tonight. And that's, I think, the overall thing why this post-game win show sounds like we just lost. Because we know what's coming, and tonight wasn't acceptable.
It wasn't, and you're right. You know, it's a bummer. We praised the defense where the defense deserved its praise, and
Right.
you know, I feel like we gave them good airtime, you know, if you will. But you're right. You cannot ignore what is still the obvious disruptive offense that we have. It's disruptive to the chemistry of the team. It's disruptive to our ability to create momentum and rhythm deep in the season because of the inconsistent play. So yes, does it sound like we lost? Yeah, because I think we sort of know we played a team that's not even inside the NCAA. The offense could still, in the FBS, the offense still couldn't even produce more than 10 points on their own outside of garbage time against this team. And again, we talked about they're not necessarily a bad team, but we should do better than that against a team that's even outside of the entirety of the conferences that we play in.
Definitely.
You want to see something better. So we're sort of not getting too excited about a win.
No pats on the back.
I think that's the point. Yeah, no super pats on the back offensively, because we know what's coming next, and we know that it's not super likely that we're going to see all of a sudden this big winning spirit, because the offense didn't win this game.
Right.
The defense did. So the offense still has work to do.
Right.
Well, let's get to the game ball thing, right? Let's do that thing that we do that we love to do, because we got to give it to some people. There's plenty of people on the defensive side. And do you want me to go first, or should you go first?
You go first.
Me go first? Okay. So might not come as too much of a surprise, because I brought this guy up. I think he did amazing. I think I brought him up 3 or 4 times in different, parts of discussion because of how I could relate his ability as a leader and ability to step up when it's being asked of him to step up to help contribute to the quarterback of a defense that we have, Trey Payne. Trey Payne, look, did he have any turnovers tonight? No, because we had 4 total defensive turnovers.
Right.
Could have given it to the people who did the turnovers. Sort of the way I see that, those guys did their job, right? No disrespect, they had a fantastic game. But at the end of the day, they did exactly what they're supposed to do in those positions. Put themselves in a position to make turnovers, to help the offense get the ball back, to slow down the other team's offense. Trey did that and then some.
Right.
He did what he was asked to do, second leading tackler on the game, but then he stepped up on special teams in 2 different areas. You don't see that. And for that, Mr. Payne, TP, right here on the ball, you get mine. Oh, we hand that to you, actually.
Oh, okay.
And
Thank
then Mr. Milligan, the floor is yours.
Okay, so as Joey was giving his game ball, I was thinking about how disrespectful it would be if we didn't give a game ball to one of the guys that on defense they got a turnover. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be disrespectful, and I'm going to give my game ball to Brandon Wright. Brandon Wright, the punter, he is a walk-on. He's a sophomore, and he's earned himself a full ride scholarship. A few weeks ago, I announced that he had his full ride scholarship on Twitter.
I got you.
And it was one of our most trafficked.
Yeah.
Excuse me. You get what I'm trying to say. A lot of people.
One of the most popular.
One of the most popular tweets that we have ever had at the Signal across the hall, and about Brandon Wright getting his full ride scholarship. And he had 200 yards punting today, an average of 40 yards. Tough act to follow when you have the guy starting in New Orleans to follow, and you're just a walk-on, and you earned yourself a starting role this season. He's held it down all season. He's been fairly consistent. I think he messed up the season opener, and he might have had another chip shot against App State or Troy or maybe even tonight. But still, an average of 40 yards punting, he's doing his job. You know, we've never been like punting's a problem. Punting's an issue after Will Lutz. Maybe kicking, not punting. So for that, I thank you, Brandon Wright.
Brandon, hey, didn't see that one coming.
Right.
That was a good one. So we'll get ready for Arkansas State on Thursday. Yeah, it is a Thursday game, so don't try to turn on the
I think
ESPN.
we play South Alabama first.
South Alabama first, then a Thursday game against Arkansas State. I'm getting ahead of myself because the schedule's so weird, playing Saturday, playing Thursday. Who knows what's going on? So we'll go to South Alabama first, and we'll try and beat the Jaguars. Then we'll play on a Thursday. Then we got Southern. The season's still got plenty of games left, so stay tuned for more offensive improvements. That's the word we'll take away from this whole show, offensive improvements. But until we get to South Alabama and until you see us again in that postgame, we're wishing you a good rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.